Sobrang di ko pa mapaniwala. Maraming salamat sa suporta at sana patuloy yung suporta niyo sa
Tears in Abu Dhabi. The moment Eala's court invasion for Zeynep Sönmez stopped tennis cold. Ladies and gentlemen, tennis fans, and anyone who still believes in genuine human connection in professional sports. Welcome back to Champions Tennisitics, the only channel that brings you the absolute heartbeat, the raw emotion, and the unfiltered truth of the tennis world. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, I'm genuinely wondering what you're waiting for, because today we're not just covering tennis. We're covering history. We're covering a moment so unexpected, so profoundly moving, and so utterly unprecedented that it has completely hijacked every headline coming out of the Middle East tennis swing. This isn't about a blistering ace down the tee. This isn't about a controversial Hawkeye challenge or a blown line call. This is about something that transcends the white lines of the tennis court entirely. We're talking about a friendship so fierce, so genuine, that it literally stopped a professional tournament in its tracks and made grown adults around the world reach for tissues like they were watching the finale of their favorite drama series. Picture this scene, if you will. The Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open, one of the premier hard-court events of the early season. The desert sun beating down on state-of-the-art facilities. The crowd buzzing with that electric anticipation that only live tennis can create. And then, in the aftermath of a devastating early round loss, we witnessed something that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. A player sprinting from the stands. Security personnel caught completely off guard. A massive banner unfurling in bold Turkish script. Flowers in the red and white colors of a national flag. And a hug, a bone-crushing, soul-bearing embrace that made every single person in that stadium forget about rankings, forget about prize money, and remember what sports is actually supposed to be about. Eala and Zeynep Sönmez, the Filipino sensation and the Turkish trailblazer. Two young women carrying the dreams of entire nations on their shoulders, who found in each other something far more valuable than any trophy. And what we witnessed in Abu Dhabi wasn't just a touching moment between friends. It was a declaration, a public statement that said, in the loneliest sport on the planet, you don't have to be alone. Grab whatever beverage you need, settle in, and let me take you through every single detail of the moment that is being called the most emotional scene in tennis this decade. This is the story of tears, triumph, friendship, and the hug that broke the internet. The moment itself happened so fast that if you blinked, you might have missed the beginning, though you certainly couldn't miss the emotional explosion that followed. Zeynep Sönmez had just walked off the court after an early exit from the tournament, and anyone who has ever competed at anything knows that particular walk of shame. Your legs feel heavy. Your bag feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. The polite applause from the crowd somehow makes it worse because you know they're just being nice. You're alone with your thoughts, and those thoughts are absolutely brutal. Sönmez, who had been riding high after her breakthrough performance at the Australian Open, where she qualified for the main draw and showed the entire tennis world that Turkey was producing a legitimate contender, looked absolutely crushed. This wasn't just any loss. This was a loss that carried weight. The Abu Dhabi Open, with its significant Middle Eastern following and large Turkish expatriate community in the UAE, was supposed to be a homecoming of sorts. The expectations were sky high. The pressure was suffocating. And when the final point didn't go her way, you could see something break inside her. Not permanently, but in that moment, the disappointment was written all over her face. The crowd was offering respectful applause, the kind of polite acknowledgement that sporting audiences give to the valiant efforts. The atmosphere was heavy with that particular kind of sporting sadness that settles over a venue when a beloved underdog doesn't get the fairy tale ending. Commentators were likely preparing their sympathetic analysis about tough draws and learning experiences and all the other phrases we use to soften the blow of defeat. It was shaping up to be just another disappointing early exit, the kind that happens every week on tour, destined to be forgotten by everyone except the player who had to live it. And then everything changed in the span of about 15 seconds. Witnesses who were there live say it started with a commotion in the players' box area. People's heads started turning. Security personnel tensed up, hands moving toward their radios, because someone was moving with purpose and speed toward the court. And in the hyper-security-conscious world of professional tennis, any unexpected movement triggers immediate response. But then recognition dawned. It wasn't a crazed fan. It wasn't a protester. It was Alexandra Eala, the Philippines' brightest tennis star, a Rafael Nadal Academy graduate, a U.S. Open junior champion, and apparently, a woman on an absolute mission. But Eala wasn't just walking down to offer a consolatory pat on the back. She was sprinting. Full-on, world-class athlete sprinting toward the court. And in her hands, she was carrying what can only be described as the most thoughtful, most elaborate gesture of friendship that professional tennis has seen in modern memory. Unfurling behind her as she ran was a massive custom-made banner, written in bold, clear Turkish letters that read, Zeynep Sönmez. For those of you whose Turkish is a bit rusty, that translates directly to Zeynep, you are my hero. Complete with a Turkish flag emoji and a heart. Let that sink in for a moment. Alexandra Eala, a Filipina, had taken the time to create a banner in Turkish, in the correct script, with the correct grammar, specifically to honor her friend in her friend's native language. This wasn't a generic great job, or we love you. This was deeply personal. This was culturally specific. This was the kind of gesture that requires forethought, planning, and a level of emotional intelligence that honestly makes you wonder why we don't see this more often in professional sports. But wait, it gets better. Tucked under Eala's other arm was a massive bouquet of flowers, and these weren't just any flowers grabbed from a hotel lobby arrangement. These flowers were meticulously arranged in brilliant red and white, the exact colors of the Turkish flag. Every detail had been considered. Every element of this gesture screamed intentionality and love. Security, having realized this wasn't a threat, but rather something unprecedented, essentially froze. What's the protocol here? There is no protocol for this. The tournament rulebook doesn't have a section on what to do when a player invades the court to emotionally support another player with nationalist flowers and a banner in a foreign language. So they did what any reasonable human being would do when confronted with pure, unfiltered friendship in action. They got out of the way. Eala didn't slow down. She hopped the barriers separating the player area from the court with the grace of someone who has been training her entire life for athletic excellence, and she ran onto the actual playing surface. In tennis, this never happens. The court is sacred space during tournament play. You don't just run onto it. There are rules. There are protocols. There are potential fines and penalties and all sorts of bureaucratic consequences. Alexandra Eala, trained at one of the most disciplined tennis academies in the world under the watchful eye of systems created by Rafael Nadal, a man who obsessively lines up his water bottles, completely disregarded all of it. The rules didn't matter. The potential consequences didn't matter. Her friend needed her, and that was the only calculation that counted. Zeynep Sönmez was near the net, probably preparing to pack up her gear and disappear into the locker room to deal with her disappointment in private the way athletes usually do. When she heard the commotion, she turned around, eyes already red from crying, completely confused by what was happening behind her. And then she saw Alex. She saw the banner. She saw the flowers. She saw her friend running full speed toward her with the kind of determination usually reserved for championship points. The professional mask that Sönmez had been trying so desperately to maintain completely shattered. You could see it happen in real time on the broadcast footage that is now circulating on every social media platform on Earth. The moment of confusion. The moment of recognition. The moment where the floodgates just opened. Eala crashed into her with a hug so powerful, so full of genuine emotion, that you could practically feel the impact through the television screen. She dropped the flowers onto the court. She let the banner fall. None of the props mattered anymore. What mattered was the embrace. What mattered was being there. The on-court microphones, those hypersensitive pieces of equipment designed to pick up every grunt and every ball strike, caught something else entirely. They caught Alex Eala, breathless from her sprint, exhausted from her own emotional expenditure, whispering directly into Zeynep Sönmez's ear words that are now trending across the internet. I promised I'd be here whether you won or lost. Thank you. Thank you. Not, I'm sorry you lost. Not, you'll get them next time. Thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for existing in this lonely, brutal sport and making it less lonely. In that moment, Eala was thanking Sönmez simply for being who she is, for fighting the fight, for carrying the weight of expectation with grace. The entire stadium witnessed Zeynep Sönmez, who had been trying to hold it together, just completely break down. She wrapped her arms around Eala and the two of them stood there, in the middle of the Abu Dhabi Open Court, sobbing in each other's arms. These are warriors. These are women who train 6 hours a day. These are competitors who have been taught since childhood to show no weakness, to never let them see you cry, to save the emotions for the hotel room. And they were ugly crying in front of thousands of people and television cameras broadcasting to millions more. The crowd's reaction was instantaneous and overwhelming. What started as confused murmuring exploded into a standing ovation that lasted longer than some of the actual sets played that day. We're talking a solid 2-minute ovation. People in the expensive VIP boxes were on their feet. The corporate sponsors who usually sit there checking their phones were wiping their eyes. Random fans who had no particular allegiance to either Turkey or the Philippines were openly weeping. The umpire, a person whose entire job is to maintain order and enforce rules, didn't even attempt to intervene. What are you going to say? Violation, excessive friendship? Code violation, emotional support? It would have been absurd. For those 2 minutes, the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open wasn't about tennis. It wasn't about who hit the hardest serve or who had the best return statistics. It was about two young women, both thousands of miles from their actual homes, who had found a home in each other. It was about the fact that in a sport designed to isolate you, designed to make you face your demons alone on that rectangle of hard court with nobody to blame and nobody to hide behind, these two had built something that transcended competition. This wasn't a handshake at the net with dead eyes and mandatory sportsmanship. This wasn't a good match with an unspoken, "I'm glad I beat you" subtext. This was a public declaration that some things matter more than rankings. Some relationships are more important than results. You are not just your win-loss record. You are a human being, and human beings need other human beings, especially in the loneliest moments. To understand why this moment detonated across the internet with the force of a cultural atomic bomb, we need to rewind and understand who these two women are and the absolutely unique bond they share. This isn't just two random players being nice to each other. This is what some fans are now calling the Turkish-Filipino alliance, a friendship forged in the specific fires that only rising international tennis stars can understand. Let's start with Alexandra Eala, because her story alone is remarkable. She is the pride of the Philippines, a nation that is absolutely obsessed with sports, but has historically struggled to produce consistent tennis champions at the highest level. Tennis in the Philippines exists, but it competes for attention and resources with basketball, boxing, and other sports where Filipinos have found more international success. Eala is changing that narrative entirely. She is a graduate of the Rafael Nadal Academy in Mallorca, which is essentially the Harvard of tennis academies, where the standards are impossibly high and the training is designed to produce champions. In 2022, she became the first Filipino to win a Grand Slam singles title at any level when she captured the U.S. Open Junior Championship. That victory sent the entire Philippines into absolute euphoria. We're talking front-page newspaper coverage, trending on social media for days, the president of the Philippines personally congratulating her. She became an instant national icon. There's also some very interesting insider information floating around. Multiple sources have indicated that a major documentary film crew was embedded at the Abu Dhabi Open during this specific week. These crews don't show up randomly. They're there because they know good stories are going to happen. Could we be seeing the Eala Sönmez friendship featured in the next season of Netflix's Breakpoint or a similar tennis documentary series? The demand would be enormous. People want to see behind the scenes of how that banner was made. Did Eala smuggle it into the stadium in pieces? Did she paint it in her hotel room the night before? Who helped her? What was going through her mind during the match as she waited to execute her plan? These are the questions that a documentary could answer, and I guarantee that if this story gets the documentary treatment, it will be one of the most watched episodes. The business implications are also significant. Brands are always looking for athletes who transcend their sport, who represent values beyond just athletic performance. Eala and Sönmez now represent friendship, loyalty, cultural bridge building, and emotional intelligence. Those are marketable qualities. Don't be surprised if you start seeing them in campaigns together, representing brands that want to associate with positive, uplifting narratives. To wrap this up, because we're approaching 5,000 words, and I could honestly talk about this for another 5,000, the Abu Dhabi Open gave us some excellent tennis. We saw great matches, impressive performances, and emerging storylines that will carry through the season. But when we look back on this tournament 10 years from now, we won't remember most of the scores. We won't remember specific point constructions or tactical adjustments. The record books will show who won the tournament, and that's fine, but it's not what will be remembered. We will remember the girl in the Turkish colors. We will remember the sprint across the court. We will remember the banner that said, "You are my hero," in a language that wasn't her own. We will remember the flowers in national flag colors. We will remember the hug that stopped time. We will remember two young women crying in each other's arms while thousands of people watched and cried with them. Alexandra Eala and Zeynep Sönmez proved something that the sports world desperately needed reminding of. They proved that winning is important, rankings matter, prize money pays the bills, but friendship, genuine human connection, being there for someone when they need you most, that's everything. That's what you remember. That's what defines a career more than any trophy. They made millions of people around the world feel something real, something unscripted, something that broke through the cynicism and reminded us why we watch sports in the first place. And honestly, that is why we watch this beautiful game. Not for the perfection, but for the humanity. Now I want to hear from you because your voice matters in this conversation. Was this the most emotional moment in tennis history, or can you think of something that tops it? Leave your answer in the comments because I genuinely want to know what moments have moved you. Do you think Eala and Sönmez should team up for doubles at the next Grand Slam? Can you imagine the scenes if they walked onto court Philippe Chatrier at Roland Garros or center court at Wimbledon as a doubles team? The support would be absolutely deafening. And here's the question I'm most curious about. Have you ever done something this dramatic, this public, this potentially risky for your best friend? Have you ever broken the rules or risked consequences because someone you loved needed you? Tell me your stories because I read every single comment and your experiences matter. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the most heartwarming, emotionally devastating, and ultimately uplifting story of the tennis year, please smash that like button so hard your finger hurts. Share this video with your tennis-loving friends, your sports fan family members, anyone who needs a reminder that humanity still exists in professional athletics. And subscribe to Champions Tennisitics with the notification bell turned on so you never miss a moment of the action, the drama, the emotion, and the glory that this sport provides every single week. We bring you the passion. We bring you the stories behind the stories. We bring you the moments that make you remember why you fell in love with tennis in the first place. Until next time, keep your serves fast, your returns sharp, and your friendships even tighter. This is Champions Tennisitics, signing off, still crying, and not even ashamed about it.
Out. Can you give us an update on what you're feeling on your right leg? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, yeah, there's a bit of discomfort and